Hi, good evening, everybody. East Africa, West Africa, from wherever you are. Asante sana for joining. I see we are still getting guys to come online. I'm honored today to be joined by a very professional guy from NACADA. And I didn't introduce myself. My name is Lucy Modoi from Nyandaro Boarding Primary School, and I'm part of the leadership team of the Alumni. And for those who've been tuning into our sessions, you know, every week we bring in a guest who takes us through different subjects. So today we are honored to have Adrian Njenga, who's from NACADA, and he'll be taking us through some of the subjects that you requested regarding alcohol and substance use, abuse, and addiction. And this is Insights for Parents. And I see he's already here with us. So without further ado, I don't want to say much because I know we have so much to learn from him. So karibu sana, Mr. Adrian Njenga. Kindly unmute yourself and say hello and just introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the invite. My name is Adrian Njenga. I work with NACADA, particularly in the area of supporting policy and planning for the institution, as well as to support with the implementation of various prevention interventions at different settings. And I'm very excited about the session that we'll be having specifically with regards to the role of parents and families to address the problem of substance use in Kenya.
Okay, great. I'll leave the floor to you now to take us through what you've prepared for this session. And everyone, thank you for joining. Q&A is at the end of this session. So if you have any question, kindly just chat it on the comment section. We are going to read them out at the end of the session. So karibu sana. I'm going to put the presentation and then we listen in from our expert.
Thank you. Good evening once again. And as the presentation has already been projected, we will be having a conversation about prevention of drug use through positive parenting. And that is from the premise that the family has been classified as a very fundamental unit of society, and one that is a basis for social order. And even in the space of prevention of drug use in our country today, as NACADA, as one of the players in the space of alcohol and drug prevention and management, we value the critical role being played by family, and the absence of the same may have contributed to some of the challenges that we are seeing among our children at the basic level of education in primary schools and also in secondary schools. Let me start by introducing NACADA. NACADA is the national authority for the campaign against alcohol and drug abuse. We serve as a national focal point on matters alcohol and drug use prevention, treatment and management in Kenya. By that, I mean we are not the only actors. There are very many institutions who are in this space. So we collaborate with all of them, both in government and at community level, to ensure that we have a whole of society approach with regards to addressing this particular concern for alcohol and drug abuse. So by way of introduction, just to emphasize that families strive to find the best ways to raise their children, to live happy, healthy, and productive lives. Parents, at the end of the day, are concerned that they need to ensure that their children grow up in an environment that is safe, away from drugs such as alcohol, marijuana, tobacco, including now a new emerging concern, which is the abuse of prescription drugs. At the end of the day, a parent wants their children to grow and become contributing members of society. So their role, they endeavor to ensure that they get the best education, they grow up to be healthy, and they are prepared to address various challenges that they will be facing in their adulthood as they make contribution towards building of society. We can agree that in Kenya today, we are right in the middle of a parenting crisis because of numerous challenges. There are many demands of modern life that are complicated by economic pressures, isolation. The family unit is not what it used to be some years back. And over time, the role of the parent, as important as it is, unfortunately has not been taken up very well. On the other hand, we appreciate that parents have a lot of power with regards to preventing their children from engaging in alcohol and substance use. So as an institution, we are really big on working and collaborating with families and institutions that also work with families so that we can enhance the capacity of parents to be able to respond to these problems adequately. Many people ask, so why do people use psychoactive substances? And we have broadly categorized the reasons into three factors. The first one is what we call individual factors. And then the individual factors, you now have peer pressure, which we all know what that is all about. For teenagers and adolescents, because of the age that they are in, at times substance use is used as a form of rebellion. Also, when they have no role models that show them how to adapt a positive lifestyle, all that they see on TikTok and other forms of social media, people who are just using substances and having fun, then some may take it up because that is what they're seeing in their space. Lack of purpose in life is also another risk factor for children. Then some of them are also looking for pleasure and curiosity about the different substances that are out there. So they've heard about, for example, weed cookies or other edibles, and they want to try them out and just confirm, is what I'm hearing reality? So those are some of the factors and the individual factors that may get someone to initiate substance use. The second one, which is the most important for this conversation, is family factors. Unfortunately, marital conflicts and breakdown also may lead to someone initiating substance use, both the parents who are going through the conflict and even the children who find themselves in families where this may be happening. Then parenting styles, depending on the parenting style that you adapt, it may contribute to substance use. Overprotection by family members may also be a risk factor that may end up exposing young people and children to substance use. And then, of course, some of us as parents, we are very ambitious and we demand nothing else but an A from our children. And when this is not communicated in a way that makes a child confident of who they are in the event that they don't get the grade that you expect them to get, unfortunately, some of them may also end up initiating substance use as a coping strategy. Then we have the overall community factors. These have to do with weak laws and policies. We are having a national conversation around strengthening the alcoholic drinks control laws in various counties. So this is responding to the community factors that are predisposing people to use substances. Availability and accessibility is also another factor. There are some constituencies where communities have lamented that if you count the number of bars, wines and spirits shops against other social amenities, unfortunately, places that are selling alcohol are much, much more. So that also tells you that the more alcohol is available within a community, then you're likely to see more harms within the same space. Then positive attitudes towards substance use, norms and beliefs about drugs and alcohol. So every time we are having cultural events, be it weddings, burial ceremonies, and any other celebration that we normally have at community level, and alcohol is usually taken as part of that particular function. That has a way of also helping people to think that it is okay to use some of these substances. So when you look at why people use psychoactive substances, you can categorize them into these three factors. And I know there are a lot of conversations about hii ugonjwa ya kujiletea, but we also need to interrogate how you ended up starting to use. Was it because of individual factors, a family risk factor that may have predisposed you, or some challenges within the community where you came from? With regards to the drug situation in Kenya, let me start with our children because we are having a conversation as parents. So from surveys that we've undertaken in both secondary and primary schools, alcohol continues to be the leading substance of use within the two categories of institutions. And the prevalence in secondary schools is at 23.4%, while in primary schools it's at 7.2%. So these are surveys that we undertook in the last 5 years. Then the second drug of choice, which was quite surprising for us, was in secondary schools, was cat or mira. Yeah. So cat again comes in different variations. You have your moka and you have your cat. So cat is the more expensive version of the same, and moka is what is easily available and affordable. So to see the trends in secondary schools being this high is also a conversation that we are having with the different stakeholders as to how children are able to access these substances. So the third category in secondary schools was prescription drugs, again, because they're easily available in schools. So children have figured out that if I come with some particular medication, the teacher will not be very strict to confirm whether I'm using it for to treat an ailment or to actually get a psychoactive effect. So we are also having a lot of conversations about accessibility of some of these prescription drugs. And they're right in our homes, be it the cough syrups that at times they come with codeine, and many other substances that we are seeing people using now, which is a worrying trend that we are trying to contain before it escalates to a point that is unmanageable. Then tobacco, which comes now in very many variations. You have your cigarette stick, the one that people have been using for the longest time. Then concerns around shisha, which is an illegal product in Kenya, though it's still available. Then you have vape and e-cigarettes, which are now a catchy trend for young people and some adults who don't understand the effects of the same. And then you have the nicotine pouches, popularly trading under the name Lift and now Velo. So these are substances that are categorized under tobacco and very harmful because nicotine is a very addictive substance. So when they initiate, when they're very young, unfortunately into adulthood, it becomes a problem that has to be managed. Then cannabis is also a concern for us. We know about the concerns around children initiating cannabis when they're very young. Because of the many myths out there about some of the things that cannabis will help them do, be it pass exams, be it make them look cool, be it to be able to do very many things. So again, nationally, we are having a conversation around the use of cannabis, not just for children and young people, but across the general population in Kenya. So this is from a survey that we conducted last year, 2022, about the prevalence of alcohol use in Kenya. And as you can see, the age group of 15 to 24 years, the prevalence level is not as high. Actually, the bigger burden is for young people aged between 25 to 35 years. And this is a productive age. We expect them now to actively participate in the productive areas of our economy, but unfortunately the prevalence levels are quite high. So the good news is we have more children and young people who are not using than those who are using substances. I know out there it feels like we have more children and young people who are using than those who are not, but we need to at least confirm that we have children who are not using, and they form the bigger majority than those who are using. With regards to tobacco, the age group that seems to have the highest prevalence is people aged between 36 to 65 years. The age group that we are concerned with today, the 15 to 24-year-olds, the prevalence levels are still very low. However, we are seeing a lot of efforts to try and drop them in and for them to initiate tobacco use when they are very young, with the new tobacco products, the vapes, the nicotine pouches, All these things are being put together so that we can encourage young people to initiate early, and they can become lifelong customers of the tobacco industry. Cannabis, this is where our problem seems to be very worrying, because from the age groups that are presented here, the 15 to 24-year-olds have a higher prevalence for cannabis use than any other age group in the country. And a lot of this has to do with the myths and the misinformation that is out there with regards to the effects of cannabis. So nationally, this is a conversation that we need to have at all levels, family level, community, even within churches. Well, it is an illegal product. It's an illegal drug. In Kenya, it is the most used illegal drug as it is today. If you get the data for cannabis, heroin, cocaine, and all the other drugs classified as illegal in our country, cannabis tops the list. And the main concern is the myths and the misinformation, endearing young people to initiate its use when they are very, very young. So from, again, the studies that we've undertaken, there are some worrying trends that we consider as risk factors. And these are trends that have been mentioned by young people themselves. This will also be very interesting to discuss further. Number one, children who come from a home where they only have a single parent, particularly a father. This has been identified as a risk factor, and children who come from such environments unfortunately seem to initiate substance use earlier than those who come from homes where both parents are present. Then, of course, when children have a lot of pocket money, unfortunately, this is also a risk factor, because then they have a lot of disposable money and they don't know what to do with it. So at times they end up getting substance use. Then if they have a family member or friend who is using alcohol and drugs, the friend bit goes without say because of peer pressure. Family member could range from older sibling, an auntie, an uncle who's close to them, or even the parents. So unfortunately, children who come from homes where one of the parents is actually using substances also have a higher chance of initiating substance use at some point in their life. Then lastly, if children are not an active member of a religious group or club, while in school they don't participate in any of these activities, then that is also singled out as a risk factor for substance use. So we encouraged by the current CBC curriculum, which demands that children participate in this in various clubs within the school setting, because for us, then that becomes a protective factor. They get to interact with other children and participate in activities and possibly pick up hobbies from the many activities that they're exposed to growing up in schools. So from the data that I've presented, well, the family initially was what we were calling a protective factor, meaning that children who come from families are protected from initiating substance use. The trends are also showing that the family can end up being a risk factor, depending on whether some of these variables are present. So if, for example, there's a family member who is using, then that presents a couple of risks for children at some point, because they may the concerns around use may be normalized because they see my dad or my mom or my big brother is using, and it seems to be okay. So what is the fuss about initiating alcohol or tobacco use or even cannabis use if that is present within the home the home environment? So as I indicated, there is hope. Majority of young people in Kenya do not use drugs or are not dependent on drugs. And I know the vibe out there, the conversations out there are that we have an addicted generation of young people. But the conversation is, when you look at the data, we have more young people who are choosing to stay sober than those who are actually initiating substance use. So we need to change the message, especially for children, because they will tell you things like, everyone is doing this. So they feel left out because the perception is everyone is doing it. So why am I not also doing the same? So we are trying to engage young people and help present and being drug-free as cool. Yeah, because it's not everyone who has initiated and is using these substances, and they are still considered as cool. And being cool is very key for young people. For us as parents, it's not something that we probably think about every day or if ever. But you remember as you were growing up, you wanted to be associated with the cool children. You wanted to wear the funky clothes. You wanted to be known for the cool and good things while you are in school. So the definition of cool is what we need to redefine when it gets to the issues of alcohol and substance use. The initiation age for alcohol and substance use in Kenya varies for different drugs. But what we have seen from our data is that most people are initiating drug use between the ages of 14 to 18 years, which is upper primary, going to all the way to Form 4 when they're finishing their high school. Yeah. So as a parent or a caregiver, we have the role of empowering our children so that they can make healthy life choices and ultimately prevent from using drugs or alcohol at some point in their lives. So for us at the authority, what we are trying to do is we are working at three things when it comes to prevention. Number one, we hope that we can prevent people from initiating substance use altogether. Number two, when they have initiated, so the second objective is to delay when they start. Yeah, and a few slides I'll explain why we want to delay that initiation. Then the third bit is in the event that they have initiated, we provide platforms through which they can get psychosocial support, whether in school or within the community or home setting. So part of the reason why I was insisting about delaying initiating substance use is, again, from science, we know the brain fully matures at the age of 5. So when people expose substances to their brains before they get to 25, they are 4 times more likely to become dependent on these substances than the person who avoids substances. So you have seen in more advanced economies, people have had conversations of increasing the age at which you can access alcohol and tobacco products to 21. So this is what is informing those kinds of conversations. That at 18, even if you allow yourself to start to use substances, which is the minimum legal drinking age in Kenya, your brain, unfortunately, is not yet fully developed. So as a country, we also need to consider having a conversation. Can we increase that age from 18 perhaps to 21, so that we can address the science behind that whole conversation? We also know that, unfortunately, for people who end up developing substance use disorders, treatment for the same is a very complicated and expensive process. So to the extent possible, we live by that popular adage that prevention is much, much better than cure. However, in the event that people develop a disorder, there is still opportunity for them to get support and care. So as a parent, then what can you do? Yeah. Unfortunately, some parents will end up with children who might initiate substance use at some point. Some will not. But in the event that they initiate, what are some of the strategies that you can adapt? So we have three proposals that you can consider adapting, and I'll run through the same with regards to some of the roles that we can take up as parents. So the first one is the need for parents to be responsive. And this has a lot to do with communication and being present. And I want to really focus on the dads in the house, because we are very absent from that home environment, and especially when it comes to nurturing and bringing up our children. Our role is not just to provide. We also need to be very active with regards to supporting our children as they grow up. So good communication, as we know, is a foundation of strong family relationships. It helps to reinforce and support positive desired behavior, and also helps the parents to stay aware of what is happening in the child's life. So if you're not present, if you're not engaging your children, you may not get to know what is happening in their life at different points when they're in school and even when they're at home. So some of the strategies you can adapt improve communication is question, get to connect and show interest or concern about what they love doing, what our children love watching, and also encourage problem solving for some of the challenges that they may be facing, even at home or in school and among their siblings. The other thing that we need to do, and again, dads here, we are not doing very well, is listen and observe. At times you just need to be, and the only way you can do this is when you are actually present. So listen to understand, not to respond. Listen to some of the things that they are telling you, the challenges that may be facing in school, the happy times they're experiencing in school, at home as they're playing with their siblings and their friends within the community environment. So listen and observe. Then lastly, reduce emotion. Because I know as parents, when our children make us angry, we become very agitated. And unfortunately, we're not able to think clearly, and we react instead of responding. So to the extent possible, let us try and manage and cut down on the strong feelings so that we can be able to think clearly and respond and support our children adequately. So when you learn that your child is on drugs, these are some of the steps that we recommend that you take up. Number one, control your thoughts, calm down, control your thoughts and actions as the first thing. I know some of us, our default setting is to look for interesting ways to punish them, but you need to think through that process. So the first thing is just control your thoughts and actions. Secondly, assess and decide if you're too upset to continue, so that if you're too angry to have a conversation with them at that particular time, it's recommended that you take a break. And as the children tell us, take a chill pill. Kidogo tu, leave the situation if you're feeling too angry or upset, and then make a plan to deal with that situation within 24 hours. Ensure that you don't take a long time before you go back and address that particular problem. Then again, depending on how serious the problem is, you'll need to respond to the issue a bit rather urgently. So the second strategy is provide structure within the home environment. You need to have clear rules and boundaries to guide your family. Children don't just need action, they also need structure so that they can develop so they can develop into secure and happy adults. Routines are very important for children, that we wake up a certain time. During the week, it's pretty much predetermined because of school, but even over the weekend, that routine is very important because they end up becoming building blocks for habits, which eventually build culture. Setting limits will also help parents to teach self-control and responsibility. And then lastly, order helps to build a sense of safety for children, and rituals build a sense of belonging and person value. So you hear people say that in my family, we have been doing this every year. This is part of that structure that as a parent you need to build and help secure your children. So some of the things that you can do to build structure, number one is communicate the rules. Do not assume that they know. So establish the rules and communicate them for the family. These may include things like the time people are supposed to be coming home for the older children. Then structure your routines of life as much as possible, be it the house duties, the rituals, family activities, including going to church together on Sunday. And lastly, in the event that some of these rules are broken, follow through with discipline. So every time a limit is stretched or a rule is broken, ensure that the proper discipline is accorded to the child. Then, of course, acknowledge when a rule is also adhered to. And I use adhere in a loose way, but offer encouragement each time a rule is actually followed. Then the last thing is be involved in your child's life. You need to spend as much time as you can, and because this is also a way of showing that you care for them. Supervision with regards to your children will also help you recognize some of the problems that may be developing, and also shows your children that you are you want to be involved in their lives. Yeah. As they're approaching teenagehood, children tend to behave in a manner to suggest they don't want their parents to be around their life. But that is the time when they need you the most. So we talk about terrible 2, which at times also manifests when they're going through teenagehood. And as parents, at times we ask ourselves, what can we do? Because every time I try to be close with them, they don't want me near them. But as a parent, you cannot afford to take a break during this particular time. Physically, they may not express the desire for you to be in their lives, but that is the time they actually need you the very most time. So how can you be more involved? Number 1, monitor and supervise schoolwork and other activities. Number 2, we also recommend that you spend time with them. And we actually even have a prescription for how much you need to spend with them daily. To the extent possible, look for 15 minutes per child per day. Yeah, if you have 3 kids, this is now 45 minutes. Yeah, and not a group session when you're having allocate 15 minutes per child per day. This could be in the morning or in the evening, so that you can get to have a feel of what is happening in their lives. And of course, when you're implementing different family activities and bonding activities, be it over the holidays, like now when they're on school break, or occasionally during the weekend, you organize something that allows you as a family to spend time together. So lastly, as I conclude, it's important to remember as a parent, your opinion matters a lot. Your opinion and your actions. Yeah, we normally have the saying, monkey see, monkey do. Children tend to do more of what you do than what you say. Yeah. So even as we're telling them to adapt positive behaviors and to make responsible choices about their lives, they're also looking at you to see, is dad or mom adapting the same approach. Yeah. So as parents, we need to remember that now, because we have become parents, we cannot afford to continue with some behaviors, because it's not just about us. It's also about what we are projecting to them, and they may consider taking it up because of the kind of opinion and influence that you have in their life. So in conclusion, as I wrap up, I also need to just encourage us as parents to be a bit more responsive, provide structure in the home. I know most of us are engaging nannies who are like deputy parents in the home environment, but you need to be there as well. And you need to play your role as a parent in ensuring that you shape the values that your children take up, and also to be there to monitor and guide them through the various stages of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Wow, that was really, really insightful. And I see the comment section is really busy with a lot of questions. So I guess I'll just go right into it. I can stop projecting your screen so that people can see you. You can come back on the screen. So there's a question here from Robin. He's asking that, he says, hey, Adrian, thank you for taking your time. Could you highlight the long-term effects of e-cigarettes, the vapes?
I respond to that?
Yes, please.
So e-cigarettes are a form of tobacco products that have been introduced in the market. And the approach that the tobacco industry is using is less harmful than your ordinary cigarette stick, but they are just as harmful as any other form of tobacco products. So some of the long-term effects will include shortness of breath, eye irritation, headaches, nausea. You also have a high risk for asthma and chronic lung diseases. So initially, they were presented as a smoking cessation tool. So if you want to cut down on smoking, people were being encouraged to consider the e-cigarette. But unfortunately, it is just as harmful as the cigarette and any other tobacco product. So that's information as parents that we also need to know about. And unfortunately, they're very available, even on Jumia. They're selling them for as low as 500 shillings. So we need to be vigilant about that, because they can your children can easily make an order of the same, and the same is delivered in your home environment without your knowledge. Since they look like pens, as a parent, when you come across it, you'll be able to know that my son or daughter is actually smoking in the house because of how the same has been presented to them.
Okay, I don't know. Could you put your video back on, Adrian?
Okay.
So, a special shout out to everyone who's watching. I can see you all in the comment section. Even if you don't have a question, you can just say hello. I see you, Moses. There is Emmanuel, Baya. Just a moment. Betty, I see you. JK, I see you. Healthy Motivation, I see you. Mofkiari. Thank you guys for joining in. So I'll go to the next questions. So there's a question here. Hey, Adrian, I'm wondering what's the difference between vapes and shisha?
Shisha is administered through a bong, but then vape is like an e-cigarette. So it uses some batteries. But then for shisha, they actually have like a gadget that is almost this big. So they actually use what we call a bong, to process and deliver the tobacco. Shisha is illegal in Kenya, but vapes for now, unfortunately, are still classified as legal tobacco products in our setting.
Okay, so there's a question here from Healthy Motivation. Are there new alcohol products?
I would want to understand that question because alcohol, the primary ingredient in alcohol is ethanol. So perhaps the product is how the industry has packaged it, whether it's flavored it with strawberries or something else. But globally, yes, there are newer trends. We are now seeing concerns around powdered alcohol, where you buy the same from an outlet and you mix it in your home environment. But that has not yet gotten here. But in some advanced economies, that is a concern that they're already talking about. So we are watching that space, but our current environment does not even allow for people to sell powdered alcohol in the first place.
Okay, someone had sent a question which I'd forwarded to you, and they were asking whether weed cookies are dangerous.
That's also a newer trend that is emerging, that has been around for quite some time. Young people prefer what we are calling edible cannabis. It could be in cookies, it could be in cakes, mandazi, in some cases sweets for the younger ones, the children. Well, they're more harmful because they take a bit longer to digest, unlike when you smoke. Yeah, so that means the intensity lasts longer. And especially for any of those edibles where they have, which has been deep fried, be it the chapati, the mandazi. So in any event where they use oil, it ends up taking a bit longer in your body, meaning that you'll get high longer. I'm not saying this to encourage people to consider that, but as parents, we need to be cognizant of the fact that that's part of the reason why children prefer them, and of course, because you don't get to smell the cannabis if you are to smoke it.
Victor is surprised that kuna chapos are weed. He's asked that in the comment section. Okay, so someone had also asked, I think there's a lot of questions around the vapes. So is vaping bad for you, even if it's just flavoring? What exactly is the effect of secondhand cigarette smoke? So those are two questions.
Well, yeah. So let me conclude that conversation on vape and e-cigarettes and just confirm it is just as harmful as smoking. And part of the reason why there is that perception that it's not as harmful is because the tobacco industry has really done a good job in making people think that it's less harmful than the cigarette. Because for a long time, we fought the cigarette. So the industry has had to innovate and look for products that look less harmful, and market those to new customers, in this case, young people. So it is just as harmful. Secondhand smoking, first we need to understand what that is. It is when you're in an environment where someone is smoking, but you're not the direct consumer of the cigarette or the tobacco product that they're using. So it is also harmful, because remember, this fellow that is smoking, as they're smoking, the cigarette has a filter. So you're taking in, you're inhaling the emissions first from this particular individual, and then the smoke that is also coming out from the cigarette. So we encourage people who smoke, especially those who have families, to the extent possible, don't do it in your home environment. Because every time you smoke in a room, it takes around 5 hours for that smoke to clear. Yeah, and that's in a well aerated room. So even if you smoke during the day and your children are in school, once they get back, within that 5 hours, they will interact with that smoke in one or another. Unfortunately, because their lungs and their respiratory system is developing, you are exposing them to a lot of harm. So if you have to do it in an open space, and not within the home environment where you are putting others at risk. So some of the effects include pneumonia, again, the chronic lung diseases, at times even cancer. Yeah. And if you smoke in an environment where young children, very young children, toddlers are present, they may end up actually dying from a condition we call sudden infant death syndrome. Because as inhaling that smoke, unfortunately, their lungs don't have the capacity to deal with the same. So you end up killing your child because you want to get high. Yeah.
Okay, there's also another question from Robin. He's asking whether has fentanyl infiltrated the market, especially in the coast region?
There are those concerns that there are fentanyl now present in our country. A few weeks ago, the authority released a statement to the effect that we've collected samples from the region, the coastal region and other parts of the country, to ascertain whether indeed it is available here in Kenya. So in the next few weeks, I'm sure once the samples have been tested, we will get a confirmation on the same. But for now, I will urge us not to speculate about the presence of that particular drug. It could be that people are using another substance that is exhibiting similar symptoms as fentanyl. So once the tests are out, as we are required to, that information will be shared with members of the public, and remedial action will then be taken.
Okay, great. Guys, we have about 17 minutes to the end of the session, so I encourage you continue writing your questions in the comments section so that at least we can, if you had any question, just feel free to type. So since this session, Adrian, was especially for parents to have insights on what's going on, and you've clearly handled that in details. So in the event that, yes, you want to support someone or someone's child, or even your own child who you realize they are using, so you've given us the steps. So what facilities? Most people always say there are no proper facilities. What facilities are there to help, or specialists that people should see? Okay, that, like, professionally, what kind of support is there?
We have a number of facilities in the country. By last count, I think we have 188 treatment and rehabilitation centers in Kenya today. Majority of those are privately owned. We have a list of the same in our website. So you can just log into our website and get to confirm your location, which part of the country you are from, and you should see the list of the facilities that are available. So as I indicated earlier, treatment is also a very expensive venture because of the complex nature of the disease, of addiction as a disease. So government has also put in place efforts to avail this service at an affordable and accessible manner. So in Mombasa, we have a facility at Miritini, specifically in Mombasa County, known as the Miritini Treatment and Rehabilitation Center. This is a facility run by NACADA itself. So for anyone who's interested in perhaps sending a child a relative, a friend, all they need to do is get in touch with us, and you will be guided on how you'll be able to access the facility. In Nairobi, we have Mathare Hospital, which is not just an inpatient psychiatric unit, but they also have a section on drug treatment rehabilitation. And in Eldoret, we have a facility at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. So these major three facilities, you should be able to access treatment at an affordable rate. I also need to emphasize that not everyone who has a substance use problem needs to be admitted. Yeah, in some cases, people may need what we call brief interventions, a number of counseling sessions. So we also have very many facilities for counseling across the country. We also run what we call a toll-free helpline, 1192, where you can call in that number and talk to a counselor anytime of day or night, and you can get some support. Yeah. And then there are very many facilities, counseling facilities across the country. So you can visit some of them. Again, I emphasize not everyone needs to be admitted, yeah, because addiction is a progressive disease. The sooner you're able to get help, yeah, you can ensure that you don't get to the point where you have to be admitted for treatment.
Okay, there's a question here from Heshimi Wachua. Which affordable facilities for rehab are there, and does NHIF cover?
Yes, NHIF has accredited some of those facilities. Again, if you look at our website, we have indicated the facilities that are accredited by NHIF. So that even as you're engaging them, you know what kinds of setup is available. And we are grateful that government has provided that facility where if you can access NHIF, they take care of a big chunk of the bill depending on the facility that you're admitted to.
I've received a question here. Someone was told that taking alcohol. Okay, so what the question is first: does taking alcohol while breastfeeding affect the baby? So Aliskia Guinness is good for breastfeeding mothers.
Yeah, those are some of the that's part of the misinformation that is out there. I've heard about Guinness and washing babies when children are still in the womb. There's also a myth in some communities about measles and cannabis, that when a child has measles, you blow some cannabis to their face and they'll get well. So there are a lot of myths out there, and I'm sure doctors will tell you during the prenatal and postnatal period for mothers and even for fathers who are accompanying their loved ones to the clinic, that we need to keep off some of these substances, yeah, because they are very harmful in their very nature. So if unfortunately at the time you're also breastfeeding, you are also exposing your child to some of these challenges. So that is just but a myth and part of the misinformation that is out there perpetuated for different interests.
Okay, another one here is, can you touch on hallucinations and how to deal with it?
I'll only define what hallucinations are, but how to deal with it is contextual, depending on the substance that is being used. Hallucinations, and I don't know if everyone understands what hallucinations are. It's when your sense of stimuli is affected. Yeah, and the five senses: touch, smell, sight, and auditory. Yeah. So when you start to see things and that are not present, start to hear things, start to smell things in your environment that are not present. So different drugs induce some of these hallucinations. So again, I may not be able to comment on how to deal with it because that is specific to a particular individual and what substance and other variables that may be concerning that particular situation. But if they're to call our toll-free helpline number 1192, the counselor, of course, will want to get more questions and respond to the concern.
Okay, there's a question from Victor Washira. what's NACADA doing regarding the many private rehabs that are expensive, that sometimes I feel it's detrimental to the families trying to have their kin rescued?
We are happy on the one hand that at least some of these facilities are available, because you can imagine if the only facilities that were available to Kenyans are government run, and government doesn't have a lot of resources to invest in that space. So what we've done is, in collaboration with other relevant stakeholders within government, and also with these facilities, we have the national standards for treatment and rehabilitation of substance use disorders in Kenya. So we accredit these facilities, and as part of that exercise, we want to ensure that they're operating within those standards so that we weed out the quacks. And because this is a disease, we ensure that the treatment protocol that is applied is in conformance with what we have in our country. So that is the kind of engagement that we have with these rehabs. And when emerging concerns such as fentanyl, for example, if it is confirmed that indeed it is in Kenya, is available, then the treatment protocol for the same is reviewed, enhanced, and the rehabs will then take necessary action on the same.
Okay, so I think in conclusion, maybe you can dive a bit deep on what kind of support that NACADA gives. And yeah, you've already said you have a database of all the facilities that help. I see there's a question. Does cannabis have? From Masi Masharia. Thank you, Adrian. This is very insightful. Cannabis has has medicinal benefits. Is it true that weed stays in the system for 7 years after you stop using? Also, what are the long-term effects of using?
That's another myth that is out there with regards to how long cannabis stays in your body. So the time is 90 days, 3 months. That's the longest that cannabis can be detected in your system. And as you draw towards the 90 days, of course, it will take higher levels of testing to ascertain if indeed you have been using cannabis. Around the conversation about the medicinal benefits of the same, again, there is science to show that in some CBD, which is now cannabis, there are two variations, yeah. So the cannabis that people use to get is not the one with medicinal benefits, yeah. The cannabis that has medicinal benefits does not have some of the psychoactive effects that we are seeing in the one that people are actually smoking and using to get high. Some of the long-term effects of cannabis, again, it affects your respiratory system. You also have a higher chance of developing some mental illnesses such as schizophrenia. And it generally presents the same effects as tobacco, only that the chances of you developing a mental illness are much higher because of the psychoactive component that is in cannabis called THC, which is not in tobacco. Because you're smoking it, then there's a high chance that the same effects that we see in tobacco will also present as you smoke cannabis.
Okay, cool. Let me see. I see someone has typed something. So there's a question here. Prescription drugs, especially cough syrups and painkillers, what is the effective way to control their use, seeing as they are still OTC drugs?
I know with regards to that at the OTC level, the Pharmacy and Poisons Board has enhanced control. So there are some drugs you can't access without a prescription. But as parents, if we have some of these drugs within the home environment, I'm sure we should have a way of controlling when kids have access to them. So that is not a responsibility that we can relegate to someone else. That is us as parents. So when you have some of these medications at home, you need to put them under lock and key so that children cannot be able to access them within that home environment.
Okay, great. I see another question, very informative. Thank you. This is from Elvina Majiwa. Very informative session. Thank you, Adrian, for informing parents and guardians about the realities of alcohol and drug use in Kenya. Thank you, Elvina, and everyone else who's in this live session. Even if you don't have a question, just say hi. We will acknowledge you and we appreciate you. So, Adrian, as we wrap up, you can maybe just talk a bit more about some of the services that NACADA can extend to citizens, and also how can people reach you, because I know that there are people who may want to involve you in their workplaces or schools. Yeah, let us know.
So as I conclude, again, I emphasize that parents and caregivers have a critical role as partners in this campaign. We actually we are your partners, so we want to work with you because you have a critical responsibility in helping shape values and behavior as our children are growing up. We work in across the country with regards to prevention, which is part of what we were discussing today. So we work in three different settings. The first setting is the family setting, which is part of the conversation we're having today, where we equip parents to be able to respond to the modern challenges that relate to substance use. We also work with institutions that work with families and parents to also address some of these concerns that we are talking about today. The second setting that we are working in is in schools. So with schools, we have a structured approach through which we're engaging schools so that we ensure that within that setting, children are not exposed to substances, and on the one hand, and number two, in the event that there are incidences related to substance use in schools, teachers respond adequately, considering that, again, this is a disease. It's not a curse or some of the things that we've been saying it is all this time. So within the school setting, we are equipping teachers, school administrators, so that they're able to put in place preventive measures, and in the event these things occur, they know what to do. Then the other setting that we are working in is in the community, where we are pushing for evidence-based policies for alcohol and tobacco, and working with community-based organizations so that they, within their space, can advocate for implementation. One, for the development of these policies, and then eventual implementation of the same. So because we are working within a devolved system, at times it's very hard for NACADA to know what is happening in a village, for example, in Nyandarua. Yeah. But if we have a community-based organization that is active also in that space, whenever they are seeing irregularities with regards to implementation of the county law, they can engage their local leader to push for the implementation of the same. So you can partner with us to push for some of those concerns. We also have a very strong counseling and rehabilitation section, where we are working with different stakeholders to ensure that counseling and rehabilitation services are available at friendly prices, and then they're accessible across the country. So again, as I put it, not everyone needs to be admitted. So you can engage us on the same. And then lastly, we also have regulatory role. So when you hear of outlets that are not complying with the law, you can also report the same to us, and we will take administrative action on the same. So we are available across the country. We have 9 offices across the country. We have an office in Nyeri for Central Region. We have an office in Embu for Eastern Region. We have an office in Eldoret for the North area. We have an office in Kisumu for Nyanza Region. We have an office in Kakamega for the Western Region. We have an office in Mombasa for Coast Region. We have an office in Nairobi for Nairobi itself. And then lastly, we have an office in Garissa for Northeastern. And I had forgotten the last one, which is Nakuru for the Southeast region. So you can have a look at the contact details in our website. Get in touch with us, and we are more than ready to partner with you towards ensuring that we safeguard Kenya from the harms of alcohol and other drugs.
All right. Wow. I don't know about everyone else, but I've learned so much. maybe you can share your final comments, guys, on the comment section, what you've learned, something new you've learned. But thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you so much also to Jackie Kigera from NACADA, who linked us up with Adrian, and we appreciate you making time to, to educate us and to challenge us, even as parents, to be more proactive, to be more present, and also just stay on the know on what's going on and be intentional parents, and also just guide our children in a better way, and also intervention measures in case there's a situation. So thank you so much, guys. I see you are all there engaging in the comment section. We appreciate your time. This session was put together by the Nyandaro Boarding Primary School Alumni Association. So every week we have insightful sessions. So I encourage you also to subscribe to our channel. Every week we have something great coming up. So yeah, stay in line. So we appreciate you, Adrian. Thank you so much. And we'll be getting in touch with you for other visits with our schools and also in our workplaces. Asanteni sana. And you can share the link after the broadcast. You can share the link with your friends. Those who missed the session, they can obviously watch it on our YouTube channel. So from here in Nairobi, everyone, wherever you are, have a lovely night. Bye.
Thank you.